Welcome to the Body Energetix Podcast. I'm your host, 23-year fitness professional, Lauren Saracione. I started my hero's journey of reconnecting with my inner child to heal my mind-body disorders 14 years ago. In this podcast, I share my 3-step system to renew your mind, regulate your emotions, and regenerate your body. Go to bodyenergetix.com to join my free community where each week we expand on the theme of the current episode so you can reconnect your mind body to restore your physical health and create your desired aesthetic.
Welcome to Body Energetix Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Saracione, 23-year fitness professional and 3 times self-healing champ. Now, this is going to be the same intro to 3 episodes, and the 3 episodes are based on the very first gamified coaching call that we just had in the Body Energetix community. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see there are 9 Post-its on the wall. We have 9 members in bodyenergetix.com. And I'm so happy about it because this is truly my life's purpose. And it is so rewarding that all of my heartache and all of my note-taking and all of my personal development and all of my pain and health issues have been useful to share with other people who might be going through something similar. So it's very fun to have the experience reflected back to me from the outside in. I'm very happy about this and very grateful for the women who are in the group. And it is open to men. You don't have to be just female oriented. There's only one module in the entire system that is around being feminine with eating and our menstrual cycle. Everything else applies to everybody. So join if you haven't joined, because this coaching call was so effective. We were on for 2 hours because I wanted to give the ladies space, as much space as they needed to express themselves and for us to create a strategy for the next 4 weeks of their life, create a strategy for their leaderboard so that they can get in the ranks again for the next coaching call, because the leaderboard goes to 0 every single month. So every single month you have a fresh opportunity to get coaching from me in a small group setting. There's only 3 people on the gamified coaching call. And we made a strategy or an accountability program of things that I am expecting them to post in the group every single day. So they're going to get support from me, because when they post in the group, I'm going to deepen whatever it is that they post to help them get even further along. That's going to bring their leaderboard up to give them, hopefully, access to another coaching call. Of course, you could do paid coaching with me in a coaching container that you have access to me almost at all times. But for the free container, participating is what gets you a monthly coaching call. So we did that today, and it took 2 hours, and it was so fabulous because now I have 3 podcast episodes to share with you based on the things that we talked about. And this is going to be so good because it's going to be more relevant to you, because it's something that is someone else is experiencing right now and will help you on your path. And then if you're one of the ladies who was in the coaching call, one of these episodes is basically for you as a secondary coaching situation to help you through the thing that you're working on. What do I want to say? Okay, continued in this opening that's going to go onto each one of these episodes is the common thing that happened on the call was there was an inability to convey the feeling the emotional body was having. So when I would ask a question for all 3 of these women, part of their response was, it's hard to put words to. I'm not really sure. There was so much going on. I can't really answer that in a specific way. What that means is the emotions, the energy of sabotage and ghosting the habits, the emotional resistance that all 3 of these women are having are in dorsal. They're in the base operating system of the nervous system that is the rollover and play dead emotions. This is the freeze and fawn reaction to stay safe, to stay alive. The dorsal level is also your blueprint, your natal chart, your human design, your gene keys. They are the same thing. We call one dorsal as a fear reaction and survival, and we call the other our soul blueprint. Reason being, the soul blueprint of your charts is what, in my belief system and in many belief systems, take it or leave it, is what your soul, decided to experience in this human form. I'm Aries rising. My midhaven is in Capricorn. That is go, fight, win energy. That is strategy energy. That is discipline energy. That is leadership energy. And I'm in fitness. Makes sense, right? Chiron, the wounded healer, is in Taurus. That has to do with physical problems that you're coming to heal, not money problems, not relationship problems. I came here to heal through the physical body. And I had 3 life-changing events with my physical health. So it makes sense who I am in my profession. Who I am in my profession makes sense based on that blueprint. The dorsal is the same thing. If we are regulated, we're able to access that blueprint that's the unconscious, just way of being who we are. But if we're in dorsal, it is a repressed emotion that then dictates this natal chart or all of our reactions to be fear-based, because we then create a protective mindset in the sympathetic of fight or flee to make sure that that dorsal roll over and play dead emotion from our childhood does not happen again. Like the sympathetic fight and flee is something that we're doing unconsciously through our behavior and through our words to prevent 2 things. Number 1, to prevent the bad thing from happening again, whatever it is that sent us into dorsal as a child. And number 2, prevent our worst fears about us being a POS from being confirmed. So the sabotage questions and the resistance questions and the struggle questions that the ladies had today, they're aware of the problem, but when I ask a question from a feeling sensation, they can't access it. So they're aware of how they act and react and how shitty they feel because they can't do this thing with their habit, because that thing with the habit is actually attached to the dorsal roll over and play dead. God forbid I find out I'm a POS, I'm not good enough, I'm too much. Or if I follow through, my worst fears will come true. That's really what the inner child feeling and the adaptive teenager is thinking. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because to use the body energetic system, I was the same way, that I knew I felt bad, but I didn't know why I felt bad, and I didn't know what emotion was making me feel bad. So that's why I created the Body Energetix coding system, to look at the body parts that weren't working correctly, that were unhealthy, giving me pain, and that I didn't like, that I really wanted to change. I looked at those to say, what is the metaphysical meaning of these? What is the negative mindset that is associated with these body parts? And do I relate to any of that stuff? And because I was in dorsal and disconnected, when I looked up the metaphysical meanings and I looked up the negative mantras from Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Body, I sat with it to be like, does any of that resonate with me? Because if it does, then I must have experienced that negative mindset or that metaphysical meaning that's making me direct my focus to this area of my body that I don't like, or that's causing my body to deteriorate. That's the dorsal stuff that is the unconscious. And so the things that these 3 episodes are of what their accountability is for the next 4 weeks are giving them a focal point in 3D in their adult human to allow the resistance and sabotage of the adaptive teenager rear its ugly head, to assess it and pay attention to it and work with it, to then loosen the grip that the adaptive teenager is keeping on the inner child emotions from not being re-experienced. When we can feel those inner child emotions, the adaptive teenager in fight and flight is going to stop being so reactive. So then your adult self can follow through better with your habits. The outcome is that we get into the body of our dreams because we're finally being consistent with our habits. But what's actually happening is you're regulating your nervous system and you are moving up the autonomic ladder from dorsal, rollover, and play dead emotions that you can't access, but you just know you feel bad, up into sympathetic to get the energy moving to actually face the worst fears and pay attention to the sabotage or the resisting, to then be able to eventually be in a ventral state where you are coherent and making decisions as a balanced human being, being aware of the feelings and being aware of your thoughts so that you don't let your habits go off the rail, so that you build a lifestyle to support your dream body to eventually become your dream body. We're reverse engineering it. And we're heading into this knowing that we're pulling up emotions. So it's a whole different mindset for this dream body acquisition. So that is your intro for all 3 of these episodes. We are now transitioning to episode number 3. This is protein, beginning of day and end of day. So the reason why this person's job for the next month to post in the group every single day, protein beginning of day and protein at the end of the day, is because several things, and I'm not in any particular order. She undereats. She does not even know how much protein she's eating. She's very resistant to structure. She's very empathetic. She feels a lot. And she knows that there is a more refined woman within herself. And she knows that she's doing things that are not in alignment with that version, but she can't help herself. So she's kind of got this like really cool strategy where you've heard me say that when I was doing my macro tracking in the beginning with my anti-inflammatory diet, that because it was so restrictive, no chocolate, no wine, no pineapple, like this list was ridiculous of things that I couldn't have. And I would test it out to see, like, am I crazy? Am I making this up? But no, if I had something that was on the do not eat list, I would have inflammation. And when I realized my negative emotion about the process I was undergoing, I would look at my chart. I would also look at the wheel of life to be like, where else do I feel this negative emotion? What is the opposite of the negative emotion I'm experiencing? And how can I experience it in another area of life or use my chart to guide me of where I should go? Because a lot of this was, I was in dorsal. So I had to create a map for me to self-generate these feelings because I didn't know what it was in dorsal that had me so upset. So I just kind of used the tools that I had access to and formulated a plan. So oftentimes I say, like, if somebody like really wants to stick to habits and they can't, like they can go hard for like 3 days or whatever it is, they just can't stick to the habits and they really want to. I'm like, okay, well, like, let's talk about what the habits are and like how you feel about them and what the So we talk about all that. And I'm like, okay, so where else in your life can we start to experience this? So the reverse happened on the call where before she shared, she said, I have shame. Somehow she used the word shame. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I related to what she was saying because when I started my nervous system class that I started in February, on one of my private calls, I was like snot crying because I said, I have this beautiful belief about life and consciousness and God and creation and being on the planet and being human. But I am so angry. I am so sad. And I cannot stand this inner conflict because in my heart of hearts, this is what I believe of how beautiful it is. But when I experience and I look at reality, I'm like, fuck, it is hard. It is sad. It is awful here. Why the fuck would we do this to ourselves? And I'm like, I'm tired of that contrast. And like I said, I was like snot crying. So this woman on the call is saying something along those lines where she knows that she has this version of herself, but she's doing things that she knows are not in alignment. And she has shame around that. And in her early childhood, big family, and she was kind of the emotional calibrator. She had to really hone in on her mom to see what her mom's emotional state was, to then make sure mom was okay, to make sure everybody else was okay. So she's like, I was always walking on my toes. Then she shares how her grandmother had passed away, and grandma was really the mother figure connection. So when that was ripped away, and then she's stuck with parenting her mom, her ability to sense emotion, she already had it. I know her human design. She's like me. She's a manifesting generator 6-2. We are here to talk about life and energy and manifestation. So number one, she was already designed to have the experience of the fall, to reconnect with herself, to then share that with people. That's what the energy signature is. So number one, she was already built to be whatever woman she has in her mind. And then number two, she had basically complex trauma because she was always every day having to navigate her mom's emotions. So she had to sense that. If you are sensing somebody's emotions, that means you are experiencing the same feeling, and your mind has to compute what this means in relation to you. So sometimes people who are not in the spiritual community, who are more in the matter of fact community of how human conditioning works, are like, all these people who say they're psychics and they have guides and angels, they're just dealing with a disassociated mind that fragmented with all of these different emotional states that they were experiencing as a child. So then all of a sudden, these mindsets that we have and these fantasies that we have, they're not guides or angels. They're just you being fucked up. That's kind of the two community outlook of it. So it doesn't matter if you believe in guides or angels or whatever. What I'm saying is that you can say I'm an empathetic person and I have energy, not me, but like you can identify as this. And also, it could also be true that you're dealing with some deep stuff of mindsets that were developed because you, in order to stay alive, to stay safe within the relationship with this person or persons, you had to interpret their feelings. And the only faculty that you have to interpret feelings is your own mind and your own experiences as the child. And then those mindsets that are associated with these different feelings, now, whenever you have that same feeling in any area of life as you're growing up, the mindset gets applied and regenerated. It gets stronger and more fiercely protective. So then by the time we are making these choices for ourselves of, I want to look a certain way, or I want to be healthier, or I know I have this like feminine, embodiment that I want to bring into the world, by the time we get to make those decisions, because we are already such a heightened emotional person sensing energy all the time, we actually can't really think straight because you have a different mindset and a different instruction set and a different habit that goes with each emotion. So as soon as we have shame for any area of life, it's going to go across the board to everything because we're overly emotional and we are oversensitized. So then it's like we get stuck and frozen and not being able to do any of our habits. And it's very frustrating because we want it and we know we have the potential, but we can't. And the reason why we can't is because these are all protective stuff from being very little, in this case, 5 years old. So for her, you know, honoring how emotional she is. And, when I ask her a question, she's like, oh, I'm up here. This is very big for me. I'm like, oh, I know that because she and I have the same energy design with human design, but also we share a similar thing where we had to like get above our body to withstand the uncomfortable emotions it was having to be human. So when you're asked a question of how do you feel about this or what does it mean to you, there's like 10 or 12 things that you could access in that moment because you created 10 or 12 mindsets around that one emotion because number one, that parentification was so complex. Number two, she's dealing with deep grief and abandonment with her grandmother passing. And number three, how our bodies and mindsets work is that whatever mental emotional mindset was created because of a feeling, anytime we interact or come close to that feeling again, that mindset and the habits associated with that state of being are going to happen. And they get stronger as we get older, as we apply it to more and more areas of life. The energy compounds, it snowballs. So it's very, very hard to unwind. So for this person who's very emotional and very in tune with energy, to her detriment, because the feelings of shame with the scenario that she shared are so overwhelming, and the desire to become this version of herself that she knows she's capable of, that feeling stuff, when you're on that emotional side and you go to make a change in your physical with your habits, the resistance that you're feeling to making those changes are actually the adaptive teenager protecting you. And what the spiritual, emotionally, energetically inclined person perceives that resistance as is, this is not in alignment. I'm a feminine energetic being. It shouldn't matter what I look like. It doesn't matter if I fit the cultural norm. That's not what being a woman is. We gaslight ourselves because we're forgetting that we have human desires. We're forgetting that we signed up for this human experience. And it's like we want to be like altruistic on a certain level, but that's really just the inner teenager gaslighting you. So what's going to happen for her is when she follows through with protein, the beginning and the end of the day, because I said, look, the habits are very plainly 1 to 2 liters of water, couple servings of vegetables, couple servings of fruit, maybe protein. That's it. That's your basic habits. I'm like, which one do you want to do? Not 3, which one? So at first she said vegetables. And I was like, oh, damn, I wanted her to pick protein. I said, how much protein do you get in a day? She's like, I have no idea. And I'm like, okay, well, if I were you, I would pick protein because protein builds your cells. You're going to feel better if you have more protein in your body. And she's like, yeah, I have protein powder. I'm like, great. I'm like, I heard this funny thing that said, eat anything with a face. So I said, if you could just have 1 protein shake a day, or if you could eat one meal that had a face at one point, that'd be great. And she said, I feel like I need a little bit more definition. And that makes sense because her energy is so open. She's like asking, can you give me a little bit more containment? And I'm like, well, yes, I can. Of course, I'm Aries rising and I'm Capricorn midhaven. I am all about discipline and telling people what to do. Let me tell you what to do. I said, I would do beginning and end of day, that you start and end your day with some sort of protein. So if she does a protein shake, most protein shake servings are like 21 to 30 grams of protein. That's kind of the range. So in theory, she should get about 21 to 30 grams of protein if she has a protein supplement. And then, a serving of chicken breast is like 30 grams of protein. So in theory, from going, I don't know how much protein, hardly any, I can't even think of it, to for 30 days getting at least 45, 50 grams of protein, she will feel significantly different. What we are also doing is, because she had shame around a situation, I asked her, what are you getting out of this situation? What do you like about it? The thing that she liked about it reminded her of something, which reminded her of when her grandmother died. So I'm thinking in my head, this is perfect. This is perfect. So what's going to happen now is she, for the first time, hopefully she's going to do this, for the first time, she will be consistent with a very simple habit. She's going to be building self-esteem and self-confidence and building her adult self by following through with this just one thing. Her body's going to transform. It's going to start the transformation process. Her dream body is going to start coming towards her because she's moving towards it on a physical level. Because she opened the discussion with, I have shame around this, and I want to know, what are you getting out of it? Because there's a reason why you're doing this. And the reason why she's doing it makes perfect sense from her early childhood. She's doing something to get a form of connection. So I'm like, great. I know that I'm talking to her, that you believe, you have certain spiritual beliefs. So you have to be the one to be self-fulfilling before somebody else makes you feel fulfilled. So let's look at this thing that you have shame around, continue doing it in a safe way, and be aware in the moment when you're feeling good. Maybe journal it down. And then be aware when you start to go down the shame spiral. Because how you feel good with this thing that you're doing you're probably not doing anything bad, but there is something happening emotionally that's why the shame spiral happens. And I think on a very plain level, it's that to be who she is and what she likes and her personality, those were things that she probably didn't have access to by having to be the little energetic calibrator for the household. So if she had to use her emotional sensing body, that in a perfect world is there for us to navigate what we want and what's in alignment for us as a fragment of source energy, having our own experience on a planet that has its own things going on, with other people doing their own thing. The sensing body is there for us to stay contained in what we want to create and then collaborate. But because things are the way they are, it becomes fear and noticing how we're separate from other people, and then how we can be separated into different groups of people. And that separation eventually leads to death. You have a greater rate of survival in community. So if she could not use her body to identify her desires and her heart and what's important to her, the good feeling that she's having in this thing, to feel good in her body when she was so used to feeling bad because she had to intercept her mom's feelings to make sure that the house was going to be okay if mom is okay. The good feelings, in contrast, whatever dynamic was happening with mom, that contrast of good feelings is going to trigger shame that she's not living up to some other expectation, because it's actually foreign for her to feel her own good feelings. So as she works on this thing and gets contemplative of, why do I like this thing that I continue to do? What is the story I tell myself? And what do I feel when I'm in my shame spiral? And if no matter what, I can continue to stick with this protein at the beginning and the end of the day, that consistency plus staying aware of the energy, when something finally clicks because of repetition, that she's like, oh, I found a mindset and an emotion. I remember this thing that happened, and I remember feeling this way. And I remember thinking, if I did this, then this would be okay. And I can see how it's translating to this area of my life in my current reality. Done. We just closed a gap. We just brought her up the autonomic ladder, which means that this one thing that she's doing of protein at the beginning and the end of the day, she's going to be able to add something else onto it, because she calibrated her energy to be higher with her conscious self now, that has the desires of becoming a better version of herself and having a physical outcome of her aesthetics. Now she's like, now this dream that she had that's really up high, and where she is in dorsal, she went up a level. So she's constantly going to be closing the gap to where her mental, emotional is going to be on the same playing field as her physical habits, which means her physical body is going to start to embody this wise mental, emotional energy, and will be a reflection of the outcomes of her self-care. It's amazing. So I'm very excited about this. I really hope she does this. In conclusion, so this segment right here that I'm sharing with you right now is going to go on the tail end of every single one of these videos. In conclusion, if this was helpful, I would really love for you to give a 5-star rating and review on your podcast players. Tag me on social media at Body Energetix with an X, or at Lauren Saracione. Go to bodyenergetics.com to join the gamified coaching community. It is like a personal training and diet store, because you have all different strategies. You have a guide to assess where you are mentally and emotionally. You have a guide to set your goal. And then once you set your goal, I have this little template that then tells you what tool to use to get that goal. In the videos, feel like I'm having a one-on-one conversation with you, telling you what to do. So it's very simple. And when you check the box, when you watch a module, your leaderboard goes up, gets you into the running to be the top 3 for the gamified coaching that's on the first Saturday of every month. When you post on the wall, it's, question or an insight or an aha moment, whatever, and I respond to it, and then you respond again. Your leaderboard just went up twice. If somebody posts and you relate and you encourage or you congratulate someone, your leaderboard goes up. So in other words, the more work you do for yourself and the more you support your community, the more support you get. And like I said, that coaching call was 2 hours. I had initially said that it was just going to be an hour, but I was like, not what it's about. It's not about the time. It's about how can you feel that basically every strategy can work, and basically every hang up that you have is mental, emotional, and we can access it strategically with habit change and nervous system regulation, and reflecting on how the inner child and the adaptive teenager shows up specifically in the autonomic nervous system. So then we're doing this mental emotional work to get the body healthy and regulated, which makes you more conscious to be able to follow through with your habits, which then will get you to your outcome. So we're kind of like going through the back entrance to your dream body. because we're looking at the sabotage and the resistance and the fantasies that we made about it that are going to validate us, that are going to validate our reality that wasn't validated when we were kids. It's causing all these issues. So good, so good. So thank you so much for listening to this, bodyenergetics.com. So thank you so much for being here. I will see you when I see you. I hope to see you in bodyenergetics.com, where you can get gamified coaching.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you found it helpful, please give me a 5-star rating and review. Share it with your friends. Tag me on social media at Body Energetix with an X or at Lauren Saracione, and I'll reshare you to my story. We'll see you in the Body Energetics community at bodyenergetics.com.